At this time, please give a warm welcome to Colonel Harvey Barnum.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to be back in Pueblo. I've been here a number of times, and it's just, this is what it's all about. This is hometown America. And you know, to kick it off, what a beautiful rendition of the national anthem. You know, I've been at phenomenal shows and football games and everybody else, and some of these new stars, they think they're stars, they try to use their individuality when they sing that beautiful song. But the young lady who sang to us today sang from the heart. And by the way, it's her birthday today. So everybody, let's say, happy birthday! And then being a life member and an honorary fire chief back in Cheshire, Connecticut, it was great to see the honor guard from the fire department here. You know, my friends, I joined you today as a grateful American. Grateful that I was born, grew up, live in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to wear the cloth of this great country and serve as a United States Marine, both in war and peace. And I'm honored to be the custodian of this medal. For I wear it in honor of those great Marines and phenomenal Navy corpsmen that as a young 18-year-old, or young 25-year-old, I got the lead on the field of battle in Vietnam in 1965. And you know, people have asked me about the medal and what's it mean and what's it done for you. I've never used this medal for my personal gain. Never. I've never used it to get great orders or be stationed here or there. I'd be naive to believe that some generals were to help me out now and then. But I use this as a platform. If I did not have this Medal of Honor, I may not have the opportunity to stand before you all today. So I've utilized this as a platform about which to stand up, speak up. As my wife always said, shut up, please, you know. But anyhow, as I look out here, Drew mentioned the photos on the wall. I got tears in my eyes when I walked in and started looking at those great warriors, great patriotic Americans. Because when I was awarded the Medal of Honor as a 4th Marine from Vietnam early on, these were my mentors. These were my mentors. There's the ones that come here, whippersnapper. Let me tell you what you should do and what you better not be doing. And I would sit and listen to them. You know, their combat was much different than mine. They were there, some of them 2 and 3 years in their war. And away from their families. So I have tried to model myself after them. As I look at some of them, it takes my breath away. And I hope that the young whippersnappers around this wall over here look at people like Pete Lemon and Drew and myself, and they try to put their feet in our footsteps and hope that they learn from what we learned. Because what we learn from these gents. And what these gents learned, they learned from those from World War II, World War I. And you know, there was someone from the Banana Wars in Nicaragua, Warrant Officer Truesdale. He lost his arm, Marine, gunner, warrant officer. So we grew up with people from World War I when Drew and I first came in. And we would sit at their knees and listen to them tell stories and be amazed. And you know, the only time they talked about that stuff is when they were with us together. Those of us who've done it and earned it don't have to talk about it. And the only time I stand up and talk about it is if I'm trying to influence the citizenry of this great country and the youth of our great country, the Scouts. You know, in the Medal of Honor book, the inside cover, it looks like the Vietnam Wall. Well, it's not. It is sayings that those of us who have earned the Medal of Honor have left for posterity. 35 years ago, when that magazine first came out, I said, the future of our country lies in the hands of our youth, our future leaders. And I believe that. And I believe in going out and talking to the youth of this country. And hopefully, if I speak to 300 youngsters, if I get through to one of them, by God, that was a successful mission. So for you Scouts, I was a Scout. I learned a lot. I learned personal discipline, obeying laws. You know, there are a lot of laws. One of them is the commandments. And then in the military, we have rules and regulations and laws. And I always remember the Boy Scouts. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. If you live by those, the Scout law and the 10 Commandments, and you obey the law, you do what policemen tell you to do. As General Chapman says, you know, there's things Marines should do and things shouldn't be doing, and they better not be doing the things they shouldn't. So I think the most important thing here today, as I look at the youth, I want you to realize how fortunate you are to live in this great country. How you Scouts are fortunate enough to have a leader who's dedicating his time. Because he was a Scout. My dad was a Scoutmaster. He mentored me. So I've been trying to carry on that tradition. So look, listen, and learn from your Scoutmaster. And the only dumb question that you may have is the one you don't ask them, okay? So Scouting is a good foundation. It was a good foundation for me. My church, my coaches, my Scoutmaster, and the good Lord, and my mom and dad. That's what built my foundation. And right now you are building a strong foundation. And you know, those of us who have been in the construction business, you know, if you don't have a strong foundation and you put walls up, the walls are going to fall down. And if the walls are shaky, then the roof's going to fall down. So you're building the foundation right now. So make sure it's strong, because you're soon to start building those walls. And if those walls are strong and you do what you're expected to do and take advantage of everything. Remember, there's no free lunch out there. You got to work for what you get. If you work hard for it, you're going to appreciate it. So make sure you do that. I want you to set your goals high. I want you to reach out for those goals. Never say it's too hard, and never say I can't. And for God's sake, take the word failure out of your vocabulary. If you'll do that, you'll be successful in this life. So take care of yourselves. Stay in step, okay? All right. Now, you know, as we sit here today, especially if you watch the news the last couple of days, the world is in the worst turmoil that I've ever seen it in my life. It's going to hell in a handbasket. We got problems in this country, but not as many problems as many countries around this world have. We got problems. We got dissension. You know, we're coming up on 250 years. As General Mattis used to say, this is an experiment in democracy. We've had some tough times. People have asked me, is patriotism and democracy broken? I said, no. It's fractured a little bit. So if something's fractured, you have to repair the bone, repair the crack. So that's what we're all supposed to do as Americans. In hometown America, like Pueblo, the American spirit is there. I wish that NBC, CBS, CNN had cameras in the back of the room today. But they wouldn't be here, because this is good news. This is good news. And the fourth estate, in my opinion, is one of our biggest enemies, because they are adding fuel to the fire of those who are taking this country down. You know, we just came through the World Cup, okay? And people came from all over the world. I don't know if you've been reading their statements or seen some of the videos that they've taken. They love America. They love the American people. They comment on how friendly everybody is. They talk about the food. They talk about parking garages. They talk about the roads. They talk about going to Walmart, where you can buy clothes, food, ammunition, a gun, all in one place. And then the Germans were saying, you know, when you can go to the bathroom, you don't have to pay for it. And they're marveling. And they're talking about going to McDonald's and going to BB's and going to steakhouses. And they can't believe the size of the portions, how much they get to eat, and all the different food. And they tell me, when these people are leaving, their bags are full of ranch dressing. They just think that's the greatest thing in America, ranch dressing. But think about that. Think about that. How they love this. And then the guys from Switzerland, I bought a Coke, and I filled it up. Free refills in the United States. Free refills. How about that? So, you know, I looked at that, a couple of them here recently. Matter of fact, I saw one on the airplane coming out here. I was reading it. And after watching what's going on around this crazy world, I said to myself, you know what? This is what everyone should be seeing. But they don't. They don't. So I think the World Cup was probably the greatest thing, the greatest chamber of commerce, hoorah, that this country could have had. Really. And I think that those Americans that they're talking about being friendly and courteous, kind, made an impression on them. And the camaraderie with people from all around the country, all around the world. They couldn't speak English, but you know, through the eyes and smiles and gestures, people talk. And they had fun together. They sang in pubs. They had great times in restaurants. They were blown away with driving on our interstate highway systems. And they loved our cities. They couldn't believe how big our cities are. That's how I feel about America. I didn't have to have them tell me that. But I would wish that, and I think one of the goals that everyone in this room should take on. And as when you have friends and neighbors who are talking down about this great country, call them aside, talk to them. Okay? Freedom of speech is one of our rights. But I think it should be a discussion, not a screaming match. So keep your cool when you're talking to someone that doesn't agree with you, because they're not going to keep their cool. And sometimes the best way to win an argument is keep your mouth shut, listen, and walk away. It drives them crazy. They want to argue with you. They want to fight with you. Know who you are. Stand firm. As I used to say, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly bear. Okay? You know, I've got a ship that was just named after me, a destroyer. She's out at sea right now. She's the newest ship in the fleet. And one of my sayings was, I was in the Pentagon, and I had civilians and military working for me, and I'd call them in, and I'd give them a task. And they'd ask a couple questions. I said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the mission. Now you go do it. And if you got problems, come back to me. So, and then I'd say, now get out there and charge on. I did that to everybody. So when I was leaving the Pentagon, they gave me a helmet. It said, Lieutenant Barnum, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy, charge on. And the other thing I want to go back to about working in the Pentagon, I was the principal director of drug enforcement policy in Bush 41, and then Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Navy and Marine Corps Reserves in Bush 43, and for a short time in the Obama administration, acting Assistant Secretary. I felt that I was there as an advocate for soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and coasties. And of course, I was there before 9/11. So after 9/11, I had oversight over the reserves. Became very busy. And I visited these reserve units when they were training. And then I saw them off when they got deployed. And then I went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and I saw them there. And then I was there when they came home. I was the one that had my thumbprints on their orders. That's a big responsibility. I had a lot of authority. In my heart, I had the responsibility to their parents, to this country, to do the best thing I could to ensure that they were best trained, well led, go do the job, mission accomplishment, and come home. So that was my charge. And in the Pentagon, of course, I was a political appointee. And Mr. Mayor, I'm not a politician. We talked about that. But I was a political appointee. So I had, at times, people in higher-ups who were political appointees give me direction. And a lot of times I would go to meetings and they call me aside, they said, you know, I want you to vote no on that. And in my heart, I thought I said, vote yes. I would take this medal and I would hold it. And I'd count up the names of those who died that day, doing what I told them to do, what I directed them to do. They did. And because they did what they did, we were successful. We overcame 10-to-1 odds. I would say, what would they say if I said no? Well, in my heart, and in your heart, I know I should say yes. I said yes at that meeting. I got to tell you, folks, I got taken to the woodshed a lot. But you know what? I had no trouble looking in the mirror when I shaved the next day. You got to do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And sometimes drawing a line and doing the right thing is the toughest thing you'll ever do. So remember that. If you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly bear. Okay? And Scouts, one more thing I want to add. You know, we got the internet. You're all on the internet, right? You got all this stuff and you send stuff back and forth to your friends, right? So you're out at a party sometime and you're doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing. And you think it's funny, so you take pictures and you send them to your buddies. Ha, ha, ha. Isn't this great? Oh, oh, oh. You know, we got away with it. 20 years from now, you're going for a big position in corporate America. Don't you think the personnel people are going to go back and research who you are? Don't you think they're going to do that? So if you're up against someone for a big job and their record is clean, they didn't screw off when they were kids, guess who's going to get the job? Think about that. You took chemistry? Every action has a reaction, right? Every action has a reaction. So when your buddies tempt you to do something wrong, think about the reaction. What's your mom and dad? What's your scoutmaster going to say? What's your coach going to say? Your guidance counselor? If you do that, think about that. Every action has a reaction. You got to be accountable for yourselves. And if you got to do things with other guys to be one of the gang, find other friends. Life is too short. Don't give it away for the sake of being one of the gang. I mean that. You're individuals. You earn your rank as individual. You earn your own merit badges. You earn your own merit badges. You earn your rank. So, to me, scouting is probably one of the greatest things you guys can do. Take advantage of it. So look, listen, and learn from your scoutmaster, okay? So, I've talked. Now it's time for you to ask some questions that you'd like to talk about. But just remember what I said, how fortunate you are to live in a great community like this and have the support. I remember when this Center for American Values began, and it was the of these folks on the wall that made it all come together. And the whole programs are based on what they stand for, what they've accomplished. So, you know, without a good history and looking back at history, what do we got? So we got a lot. We got a lot. 250 years. 250 years. It didn't come easy. We've had problems. But you know, as Americans, we've sort of come together and put our shoulders together and get the job done. So it's a pleasure for me and Martha, the sponsor of my ship, our ship, by the way, and to be with you all and to look at you. Look at clean-cut Americans who love their country as much as I do. So remember what that flag stands for and what these gents have done to ensure that flag can still stand there. Okay? So with that having been said, who's got the first question? All right, get out the quiz papers. There's going to be a quiz, though. Okay, in the back. Stand up. Let's hear it.
Simplify Dallas.
Simplify.
How do you deal with the invisible wounds that no one sees, but you live with every day? I came back from my Vietnam experience. I was paralyzed emotionally and psychologically from my experiences, and I was living in. I was lost within myself, and I couldn't live with myself anymore, and I didn't know where I was going and what I was doing. And I've done the healing through seeking help. That was the only way that I could begin the healing from within the self. And I have a war collection and a life collection for my poetry and artwork. And again, I want to direct your question again. How do you deal with the invisible wounds from within yourself?
Well, you know, anybody that's been in combat has PTS. Some can handle it, and some it affects them differently. And so what happens with one warrior might not happen with another. Some hold it in, which is very bad. I think the warrior in the back, the Marine in the back, sought help, and he's feeling better today. But you know, when the Vietnam guys come back home, think of the condition our country was in there. Oh, my gosh. You know, we were not welcomed home. We were not welcomed home. And when we came home, you know, these guys, when they came home from war, they were aboard ship for 30 days. They had a winding down period. Vietnam, you checked your rifle in, you gave them your ammunition, and you got on an airplane, the next thing you know, you land in San Francisco. And of course, you land in San Francisco, and everybody spat at you, and it was just terrible. What a way. Now, whether you agreed with Vietnam or not, that's not the question. The question is, the soldiers, sailor, air, Marines, and Coasties were sent there by this government. We owe them the courtesy of taking care of them. The VA had problems. Years ago, the VA was the biggest bureaucracy in Washington. And to change the VA was like trying to turn an aircraft carrier around in the Potomac River. You can't do it. It's come around. Take a lot of hard work. And I think we're doing much better today. Now, the way we were treated, when the Desert Storm guys came home, the Vietnam guys were there to meet them. We were there, the ones to pat them on the back, to welcome home, tell them I got a job. Because we didn't want them to be treated the way we were. Now, I stayed in the Marine Corps. So a lot of this turmoil didn't affect me because I was doing a job. I was leading Marines. So I wasn't caught up in it. And thank God I was not seriously injured. But as I said, anybody that's been in combat has got a little PTS. It's how you handle it. And now we have counselors. And if you go sit and talk to counselors, it's like going to confession for those of us who are Catholic. You tell the priest what you've done wrong. Now you're sharing it with somebody else. You don't have all that weight on your back. And then he helps you absolve, it gives you guidance or absolves your sins. Whew. You know, if you I used to, the hardest part was most warriors are Rambos. Yeah, I'm doing fine. There's nothing wrong with me. You know, bring them on, bring them on. Well, you know, after you've seen buddies killed and massacred and stuff, you know, it affects the old brain housing group in your heart. Some people can handle it, some people can't. It affects everybody different. So there is no answer to your question. All I can say to you, God bless you for serving. I hope that the assistance you have got is brought you around, and I'm sorry it took so long for it to happen. God bless you. All right, who's got another question?
Colonel, I had the honor to sit and talk with you a few years back when you were here. You were the first Medal of Honor recipient to ever give me a challenge coin, and it stays in my case, and it's one of the most prized possessions I have. But you got to sit and talk to kids that day. And I was teaching a class, and you talked to them. I saw kids who the teacher said were usually troublemakers, whatever you want to call them. Okay, but that day, I saw kids walk out of here, excuse me, I saw kids walk out of here tall and proud. And it's one of the greatest memories I will ever carry in my life. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. As I said, someone may say I fired you up. These whippersnappers over here fired me up because they are the future leaders. I can remember being a scout. I went to a Boy Scout Jamboree in 1953 in California. 1957, I went to the Baden-Powell Jamboree in England. And I was selected to be the senior patrol leader of the unit from New England and then toured Europe. So that's what scouting's meant to me. I'm a scout master at scout camp. I can't say enough about scouting and those who dedicate their time to help these young men and women. So, okay, who else? Go ahead.
Hi, Barney. Just a quick question. What's the hardest part about being a Medal of Honor recipient?
There are times if one more person slaps me on the back and tells me how great I am, I can't have it. There have been times that I have walked out of events because it's not about me. It's about what this medal represents. It's what the medal represents. I just happen to be the custodian, okay? I got to tell you, I think it was easier to win, to earn it, than to wear it sometimes. Because people, and I stayed in the Marine Corps. It's not Captain Barnum, Major Barnum, Lieutenant Colonel Barnum. It's Major Barnum, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel Barnum with the Medal of Honor. So they put you up on a platform, up on a podium, up on a pedestal, I mean. So you're on parade, and it's General Wilson and General Davis used to say, don't you ever do anything to embarrass the United States Marine Corps or embarrass those of us who have earned this medal. And I have tried to live up to that. Sometimes it's not easy. And sometimes you say things that maybe you shouldn't. And you got to learn to smile, back up, and walk away. Okay? And my hardest thing is with the press. I can't, I will not do a taped interview with some of these stations anymore. because they cut and paste. I said, if you want to interview me live, I'll do it. But I'm not going to let you use me to fill in the headlines you've already written. So I don't take any, just don't do that. So, you know, if you, as I said, you can be a bear, be a grizzly bear. And I've been a grizzly bear all my life. And anybody that's ever worked for me knows that. They know I call a spade a spade. And I have a joke I'll tell some of the guys later, but I can't say it in front of the women. But anyhow, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So if I have this correct, Barnum, Blott, Brabham, and Christmas were part of a pretty special squad back at the basic school.
That's correct.
I'm just curious what stands out at you that caused 3 of them to become general officers and 1 of them to become a Medal of Honor recipient.
Well, you know, around Christmas received the Navy Cross, Way City. But you know, we're classmates, 1962. So years later, we have a reunion. We can have a, you know, so we go to General Christmas's house at Marine Barracks, and Lieutenant General Christmas is there, Lieutenant Colonel Brabham, and Lieutenant Colonel Blott, and Captain Barnum. Guess who got to be the project officer? Me, okay? Phenomenal guys. Harry Blott, aviation, unbelievable. Jim Brabham, engineer. Ron Christmas, combat warrior. I was at the wrong place at the right time at the right place at the wrong time. We had the same training. You know, we were in basic school when the Cuban Missile Crisis broke. We were supposed to graduate in February. We started training 24/7. I qualified on the rifle range on a Sunday. Because if we were going to war, second lieutenants, they go through second lieutenants like this. So they were preparing us. We got rid of all the knife and fork stuff and history and traditions. It was all tactics, weapons. And then, of course, it subsided. Well, everything had changed and our orders been rewritten. So we graduated before Christmas when we were supposed to graduate in end of January. So we went off into the fleet. So the 4 of us have remained. We call us the amigos. We're very close, and they've all done very well. And we've all had a, you know, yeah. Someone says, "Why didn't you make general?" You know why? I didn't get 6 votes. Really. One day I'm in a commandant. General Kelly's out of office, and I'm trying to think of the general's name that came out. Well, anyways, he says, "Oh, we're all in the zone for being looked at." He says, "You know what it takes to make general?" Of course, we're all, you know, looking up. 6 votes. If you get 6 votes, you're in. So if you don't have, you know, and anybody in that list could be a general officer. Some people have a daddy. That's enough said.
Colonel, what outfit were you with in Vietnam, number 1? And number 2 is, I assume that you were friends with Medal of Honor recipient Woody Williams.
Oh, yeah. Of course, Woody Williams, Iwo Jima, World War II, one of my mentors. I was with Echo Battery, 2nd Battalion, 12th Marines. As a forward observer the first time, and when I went back second time, I was the battery commander of Echo Battery, 2nd Battalion, 12th Marines, 3rd Marine Division. Yeah, Woody Williams is a good friend of ours. Anybody else?
You were talking earlier about the media and the news. I'm just curious, as a citizen and not someone from the military, how hard is it on our military and those that lead our military to deal with the negativity that is portrayed in our media constantly?
Well, in your heart, you know they're wrong and you're right. No, really. Our love of country as I said, there are problems, and I've confronted some of these problems. Maybe I've been part of them sometimes. But those of us who have worn the cloth of this country know the training we went through. We knew the hardships our family went through, and we knew our buddies that didn't come home. You can't change that. So someone who stands up and is so negative and everything else, you know, when I first got back from Vietnam, people called me, you know, baby killer and this and that. So wait a minute, when's the last time you were in Vietnam? I just left 3 days ago. It wasn't that way when I was there. And then I throw I'm a big one to throw a question back at somebody. They make an allegation, and I'll go right back at them. It's not in the card that someone gave them to ask. They don't know what to do. You know, a lot of these demonstrators are being paid. They're being paid. And it's a shame. And we ought to find those who are paying them and string them up.
So first of all, Colonel, thank you very much for your service. Really appreciate it. And also, thank you for the kind words for our scouts. The question I've got for you is, during combat, is there one lesson that you wish, or that you learned, that you wish that each scout could implement or learn before becoming an adult?
Yeah. Know yourself. Know your capabilities and your limitations. And don't play to your capabilities. Work hard at bringing your limitations up to being capabilities. You can't lead anybody. You can't lead yourself. Okay? So if you can't control yourself, then you can't stand up and be a leader, because no one's going to follow you. Okay? So again, know who you are, be proud of who you are, and charge on. Simple as that. It's not hard. It ain't rocket science. It's not rocket. It's common sense. Use common sense. Should I do it? Should I not do it? You know? And then take care of each other. Leaders take care of their people. That was my reward, being a Marine, leader of Marines, is to give a bunch of Marines and sailors a task, stand back, and watch them do it. That was my reward. You know, the ribbons we wear, yeah, that lets other people know what you did and where you were and all of that. But my reward, the only thing I missed about getting out of the Marine Corps, being around Marines and sailors. So when I was a political appointee, the only thing different was what I wore to work. You know, I didn't have a uniform on. I had a suit. My biggest problem was what color tie and what color socks to wear. You know, really, I was a suit. We're suits. So, you know, being in the military is not a job. It's a way of life. It either agrees with you or it doesn't agree with you. And that's the reason some people stay in for a career, and some people serve 4 years, figure they did what they did for our country, they feel good about it, and they take what they learn and they go home, and they go on with life. So it's a building block approach. I got your question, Scoutmaster? Okay, anybody else?
Colonel Barnum, thank you very much for spending the time with us today.
yeah.
Can we give
Well,
him a round of applause, please?
Well, thank you very much, and Martha and I will be here for a while to answer some questions, and now I'm going to go over and I'm going to present each one of these youngsters with one of my challenge coins. And I want you youngsters, not just the scouts, but all the youngsters, I want you to carry that with you. Think about some of the things I said here. You know, if I could make it, you could make it, okay? And when things get going tough, put your hand in your pocket. Hold that and say, before you go to what would the colonel say if I did this? Would he be proud of me? And you know what? That's the reason I carry a big stick. Okay? Okay? No, I'm only kidding. But anyhow, no, I want you to have that, and I want you to hopefully you remember what I had to say. I said it from my heart. Someone said to me earlier, can I have a copy of your speech? I said, I don't know what the hell I'm going to say yet. I started talking, I was looking out here. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw my scouts. Where did I go? Right to you guys. Because you are the future of this great country. So take the ball and run with it. Okay? All right. Thank you very much, folks.